Changing the title card on you. This is actually a test for the other new show that we're going to be putting out here on the channel in a couple of months, the Reviewing Network Talks About. And we're just going to be doing, well, at least for the first year of the show, we're going to be talking about mostly my 30 favorite movies of all time. We'll do a movie each week on there, and that's, like I said in the previous 10th anniversary announcement video, that's going to be coming up in early September. But in the meantime, I wanted to delve into a conversation about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Not for the movie itself, mostly. But we're mostly going to talk about why it didn't do so well at the box office. Or just, it's really, honestly, I hate to say it because I do actually like this movie more than I think most people do. Which honestly, I don't think that's really totally true. But bottom line, we're here to talk about why it failed at the box office. It's in its second week right now. It's just crossed $120 million. And for a movie that has a budget somewhere over $300 million, that's not good for a film that's only 2 weeks out of its release. And you lose to not only a movie from the Insidious series, which was the film that surpassed the box office this weekend with over $32 million. And then you also lose a lot of your audience to a film that, I don't know if this is true or not, but that movie, The Sound of Freedom, apparently was a film that was originally pitched under Disney, and Disney said no to it, and now you have all these conservatives and all these Republicans going after Disney because you lost to a film that you could have had for your own, which I don't know if that's true or not. I didn't get a chance to fully look into it yet, but I mean, if that's the case, though, like, I don't think that really would have been that big of a deal. Plus, conservatives and Republicans right now are against Disney on pretty much anything that they do right now. But we're not here to talk about that right now. We're here to talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We're here to talk about what happened. I have actually 6 reasonings that I came up with to talk about what went wrong with this film in terms of why it didn't succeed at the box office. And now I'm going to try to... I just want to say right now that a lot of people are comparing this to The Flash. Like, The Flash was a big box office bomb, but that was a bomb because of a number of reasons. Like, you had, of course, the controversy behind the scenes with Ezra Miller. You had Warner Brothers trying to overhype this movie as much as it can. Indiana Jones does not have that kind of a backlash behind the scenes. Like, Harrison Ford didn't get arrested for any assault allegations while they were making this movie. Nothing bad happened behind the scenes, as far as I know, as far as we all know. But there are far less behind-the-scenes problems that are compared to what The Flash has to deal with here. But like I said, I have 6 reasonings here of why this movie didn't do so well. I had to really think about this, so this is why this is coming a week after the movie has come out. So I've had some time to think about this before I actually went on here to talk. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And I think there's no better place to start with the first reason why the movie failed, and that was, of course, the budget of the film. So like I said before, the budget for this movie is a reported $250 to $300 million. It's the most expensive film in the Indiana Jones film series, and it's one of the most expensive films ever made. And you really have to look at that and think to yourself, what did Disney see that made them say, this has got to be a $300 million movie, that this has to cost $300 million? Because... And you can make the argument that they've done this before in the past. I mean, Star Wars: The Force Awakens reportedly has a budget of $447 million, and that's the most expensive film ever made. Then they also have Avatar: The Way of Water, which cost around $350 to $460 million. The Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame stand as the most expensive back-to-back film productions with a combined cost of $1 billion. So for Disney, this is not that big of a difference compared to some of the stuff they've done before. I'm looking at the list right now of the most expensive productions on there. There's stuff on there they've done that I haven't even delved into yet, like Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, At World's End as well. Star Wars: The Last Jedi is also on this list, and then you have Universal with Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom and Fast X. But I'm looking right here, 1, 2, 3. Oh, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker's on here as well. 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 of the top 10 movies on this list are Disney. Actually, no, that's not true. 8 of the 10 movies, because I said Fast X and Jurassic World. But you get the idea here. Like, they spend a lot of money on these movies, and I get why they did it. I get why they do this now. This is part of their strategy now to go for mostly event type pictures at Disney. Like they don't usually put the small budgeted films out there anymore. They usually ship those off to Disney Plus or Hulu, and that's one of the that's probably another reason why this is that we should probably eventually get to here. But there's no reason why this movie should have been over $300 million. I heard somewhere that one of the reasonings why the budget was so high was because of Harrison Ford apparently getting a $20 million bonus for this movie because of the COVID pandemic. I'm trying to see if I can find where the information was here. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can find it somewhere. Okay, I found it here. It was from a Deadline article, and it says here it got a lot of pushback. The price tag went up because of the COVID pandemic. Because, like I said, this was taking place during the course of the COVID pandemic. But Harrison Ford apparently got a $20 million fee for this film, and James Mangold also got a big amount of money. Steven Spielberg has a huge production fee, even though he has nothing. He doesn't really have a whole lot in. I thought I read at one point that he didn't have any real involvement in this film because. We'll eventually get to him in a moment, but apparently he does have more of an involvement that they're letting on here. But you get the idea here. So there's a lot of money being put into this, and of course you're putting this out. You're trying to get this made during the crux of a COVID pandemic, of a huge pandemic worldwide. The budget, of course, is going to go up in a number of ways, and this film has been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. I mean, this film originally was supposed to come out in July of 2019. Then they pushed that back for the Inhumans movie that never got made. They pushed it back again in 2017 to 2020 when The Lion King was going into that slot. They shifted back again to 2021, and then they shifted to 2022. But because of the COVID pandemic, they pushed it back again to where it has been now, June 30th, 2023. And like I said, when you see the movie, you can tell there is a high budget to this, but it doesn't really feel like a lot of it went into the making of the film itself. Like it doesn't have any scenes that are like in The Flash, where you can tell that budget that they had was nowhere to be seen on screen, because you cannot have scenes that look as bad as they do in that film and tell me that had a high budget like that. Like everything in here looked like it fit most of the budget, but then there's those other things about that. Like, are they adding in the fact that that Harrison Ford got $20 million for this into the budget here? Like, it's really weird. But bottom line here, this movie is going to have a really hard time making its money back. It's going to make its profit back probably, but as far as a worldwide gross, this thing needs to make $600 million, it said, to make any sort of a profit back, which is going to be incredibly hard to do. And I don't know why they thought they could bump all that money into this. Like, I know you could put the money into the Star Wars films and all the Star Wars stuff there, because it definitely would show on screen, but Indiana Jones, however, I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking on that front there. So that's one of the first things that I noticed here. But let's go to the second thing on here, and that is the involvement of Steven Spielberg, as well as the addition of director James Mangold. So Steven Spielberg has long been the director of the other Indiana Jones films. He directed all 4 of the films that came before this, and he had been he was in development to be a part of this new film, and he had been working on it for a number of years. And then I think it was around the time after, after Logan came out. No, it was after that. It was right when the pandemic was just getting started. Steven Spielberg said that he decided to drop out of directing the film. He wanted to pass the film series to a new filmmaker for a fresh perspective, and Spielberg was kind of on and off about the project, but he would remain a producer on there. So James Mangold eventually came on board. And James Mangold has made a lot of really good movies. I mean, this is a guy who we've talked about more than enough on this channel. We've talked about all the great movies he did. We just talked about Copland on Time About the Movies. I mean, he also made Girl Interrupted, Identity, Walk the Line, 3:10 to Yuma, The Wolverine, Logan, Ford versus Ferrari. I mean, this is a great director, and having him come on board to do this movie, when I first heard that news, I thought that was the best news that this film could have. Like, it sucks that Steven Spielberg doesn't come back for this, but you know what? You can bring in a guy like James Mangold, and I think that would easily save the movie and give this movie a fresh perspective. It would be interesting to see what a James Mangold film could really be like. If he is a James Mangold Indiana Jones film would be like. Let's see what another director comes into play here. Let's see what happens when we do this. But then, as the movie was coming out, in the months leading up to it, it felt like they basically just said that, hey, just so you guys know, this is the last film in the Indiana Jones series, period. Like, we're not doing any more after this. And that leads me to a lot of questions going on here, and especially when it's also been revealed that Steven Spielberg himself, while he's not involved with the direction on this, he was still very much involved in the production, as he was still very much involved with the film. So that leads to a lot of questions I have for this, and that is, if this is supposed to be the last film in the series, why is James Mangold coming in here to direct this? Why didn't you find a way to bring Steven Spielberg back for this, if this is supposed to be the final chapter of the storyline? And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense whatsoever. Like, I don't really understand what was the reasoning why Spielberg couldn't come back to this if this is set to be the last movie. Wouldn't you think that a Steven Spielberg directed finale to the Indiana Jones series after what he did with the other 4 films would make a whole lot more sense? Like, James Mangold is a great director, like I said, but you're bringing him in to direct this one last film when that was probably not the intentional plan all along. I thought maybe with James Mangold coming in, this would be kind of like what Star Wars The Force Awakens was, a passing of the baton to this new group of people that's going to be coming into this film. And it doesn't really feel like that, honestly. This feels like it feels like there's a lot of problems behind the scenes of this movie. I think when they edited the movie together, maybe there was a belief that there's no way people are going to want to come back to see another Indiana Jones movie after this. I'm thinking that's what Disney was probably thinking behind this. And so they basically said within a few months before the movie comes out, saying that, oh, by the way, guys, this is the last film in the Indiana Jones series. This will be the last thing that we're doing. This Disney Plus series that we were going to do, yeah, that's no longer going to be happening anymore. So this is the last thing that we're going to be doing, and it just, none of this really makes any sense here. I get the feeling maybe there's a James Mangold cut for this somewhere, a different cut than what we get in theaters. Like, we'll probably see at some point. Like, I don't know. I just get the feeling that is going to happen at some point here. We're going to have somebody's going to find a way to get a specific cut from James Mangold out there that was the original cut for this film that wasn't intended to be with the what am I trying to say here? Like, I feel like there's an alternate cut out there that Disney's probably hiding in their vaults and probably will never ever release, but I really don't believe that the film that we're seeing in theaters right now was the intended final cut of the movie that was supposed to be the overall finished product here that we were supposed to get. Like, there's some fishy stuff going on behind the scenes there that I think eventually we'll find out about down the road, which let's go ahead and move on to the next thing that I think this movie had a problem with finding a way to get an audience out there. And that's the fact that I think Disney purposely was trying to hide the movie from getting too much attention. Like, you would think for a film that has a $300 million budget, you would think Disney would go all out to promote this movie, like they did with Star Wars The Force Awakens, and the fact that they were relaunching the Star Wars series, and they're going to have all these trailers out over a year before the movie comes out to get the hype built up here. With this, I really don't think they did that. They really cared that much. Like, it's weird. Like I said, Star Wars: The Force Awakens had over a year's worth of marketing to promote and get the hype up for the new movie. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny only had 6 months. Like, even Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull had a small time to really get the buzz going on it. I think the first trailer for it actually came out in February of 2008, if I'm not mistaken. That was only 4 months after that film came out, and yet that film did pretty well because they still managed to get the hype going up here. And I say Disney was probably hiding it because I went to a lot of movies that this trailer should have been playing in theaters in front of. Like, you would think Disney would want to get this movie out into as many theaters on the big screen as you possibly can. You know how many times I saw this trailer in theaters? Any of the trailers for Indiana Jones in theaters in the 6 months that I went to see movies? Twice. 2 times in 6 months did I get a trailer for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in theaters. And you want to know how close they were to being to the time I saw them? 2 weeks before the film even came out. They had a trailer in front of Elemental, and then they showed it again when I went to see No Hard Feelings. And then the week after that, Indiana Jones came out. They were clearly trying to hide this movie from making any money whatsoever. Like going back to before, why did you even bother to make this film if you weren't even going to try to promote it as hard as you did with the original Star Wars movies? Like, the toys were out there. The toys were out out at stores. I saw them at Toys R Us. No, I saw them at Target and Walmart. Toys R Us doesn't even exist anymore except for Macy's, and I know they had like mini stores at some point or in malls. I don't know for certain if those are still there, but the bottom line here is that they had the toys out there, but they were also promoting the other Indiana Jones films on Disney Plus as well. But as far as in the theaters, there was literally nothing for them on the big screens. Now, keep in mind that these were also during screenings where they had multiple showings of these movies going on at different times. So maybe it was just because I went to a specific time of the day as well as a theater that was showing it and didn't have the same trailer package that this would be included on. Because I could have sworn there were some other ones, like for The Little Mermaid. As I was walking by one time, they did have a trailer package where you can hear Indiana Jones going on in there. So maybe it's just because I went to the theaters, the showings I went to, they didn't have it on every single reel that they had. Which, for a film that has this kind of a budget and should have this kind of hype to it, the fact that Disney pretty much did nothing until the last minute to get this hype going, that's probably not a good sign going forward. And actually, there was another thing I should bring up here, of course, that should be one of the first early warning signs, is that Disney took this to Cannes along with Elemental, which I don't know. Like, I didn't think it was a big deal at the time because, you take movies to the Cannes Film Festival, and I don't know. The whole idea of taking the films to the Cannes Film Festival seems like kind of not a great idea to begin with, because people at the Cannes Film Festivals are very snooty, and they judge everything on how long somebody stands up and applauds for something. Like, if your movie gets over a 10-minute standing ovation, that means that you all of a sudden have something credible according to them, and then it turns out to be a piece of garbage when it actually does come out. You can't really trust what people say about this, but they took this to the Cannes Film Festival, and it received a 5-minute standing ovation, which was classified as lukewarm. And the reactions to it were very polarizing, which eventually happened the same thing to Elemental, which also did not get a good response from critics. And Disney basically learned a hard lesson there. They basically learned that just because you're Disney and you have these two high-profile films there, you can't expect these movies to come out of the gate with strong reactions from people, especially at a place like Cannes, where they judge you on how many times people get up and how long people get up and applaud you for your work that you've done, because the stars and the people behind the scenes are there. If they weren't there, they probably would not be doing that whatsoever. It's just like, yeah, it's one of those things where you look back and you go like, yeah, that was probably something you shouldn't have done. And the early word of mouth on it was not that great from both of those two films, but Elemental did eventually find its way with critics as well as the audiences. I know it didn't open well against The Flash, but it just surpassed The Flash in terms of total domestic box office totals, and it's actually now Disney's highest-grossing animated feature since Frozen 2, which really isn't saying all that much, but it made $250 million worldwide so far, so people are finding that movie. And barring some sort of... and Indiana Jones could have maybe have done that, but unfortunately it's got the stiff competition coming up. I mean, you've got Mission Impossible this week, Barbie and Oppenheimer next week, and then Disney's got to worry about Haunted Mansion, which as of right now, they're not really promoting all that well. I know there's a commercial for State Farm with the Jake on there and Rosario Dawson, and that's it. Other than that, though, there's no trailers on TV for it. They show the trailers for it in the movies, but other than that, though, they are not doing a good job promoting Haunted Mansion so far. And if they're not careful, this is going to be something where heads are going to have to start rolling at Disney pretty soon if they have to deal with another flop like that. But let's go ahead and move on to the next thing that I think really dinged Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and that is the lack of overall memorable characters. The acting overall in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is pretty good. I mean, seeing Harrison Ford, John Rhys Davies, and Karen Allen back again is always going to be fun to see. But then you have people like Phoebe Waller-Bridge playing Helena Shaw, who should be a really interesting character, as she's the goddaughter of Indiana Jones, and Toby Jones plays her father. And you have a great villain in Mads Mikkelsen playing Jurgen Voller, who's this Nazi-turned NASA scientist. They're great characters overall, but then you have characters like Boyd Holbrook, and who's really a lackluster villain. You have this other guy who's like this big, tall henchman to the main villain, and he should be the coolest bad guy in the coolest guy in the film, because he looks so cool like that, looking as tall as he does, and he goes out in the most painful way possible. It wasn't even funny the way he got killed off in this movie, and he got killed off by probably the most obnoxious character in the movie and the most annoying character in the film, Teddy, who really is basically a retread of Short Round, and not a good one. Like, Short Round was annoying in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, but you at least understood why he was there. He may have been an annoying character overall, but I got why he was there. I got why he was part of that storyline, and he was more memorable than this kid is. Like, I swear to God, when I saw this movie the first time, I had no idea what his name was. He did not leave a lasting impact whatsoever, and he really has no purpose to the story whatsoever. Like, he really does not have any redeemable qualities to him, and this guy should have never been brought on this journey with him. If it would have been just Indiana Jones and Helena Shaw, then this film would have been much more. That storyline would have been much more interesting with Indiana, with Jones working with the goddaughter in this. But Teddy was an obnoxious character. I really did not like him. And then you have characters that have serve absolutely no purpose to the story whatsoever. And the film knows that they don't do anything. Like, the big one is the government agent who is after Indiana Jones because he's framed for murder. And you think this is going to be a huge storyline that goes on in the film, but she gets killed off halfway through the movie. And that storyline just goes absolutely nowhere. It's just like, what was the point of that scene then? Like, what was the reason why she was there? Like, I feel like this actress, who is really good in the scene she's really good in the movie, but at the same time, they give her absolutely nothing to do in this film. And that's really just, it's like she's only there to get killed off, as does Antonio Banderas, which he's supposed to be an old friend of Indiana Jones, and it's supposed to be a pivotal moment in the series, and he gets killed off in less than 10 minutes after he shows up for the first time. Like, literally, he serves no purpose to the story except to get it going, to find this one piece of the element that they need to look for to find this dial, and he's gone within like 10-15 minutes of his time on screen. It's just like, I don't get what they were thinking here. Like, why was he even in this film? Like, why? Because he's Antonio Banderas? Because, oh, he worked with Steven Spielberg on The Mask of Zorro. Let's get him back on there, because clearly he'll want to work with these guys. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's just like a lot of the characters, besides Harrison Ford, besides John Rhys Davies, and besides Karen Allen, besides Phoebe Waller-Bridge, they were not memorable whatsoever. Mads Mikkelsen, too, I should say, as the villain. They were not memorable in any way, shape, or form. They were completely pointless to the story. They served no purpose whatsoever. And they really just did not feel like they needed to be here in this particular project, because they had nothing to do. They had no real element to the story that they added to it. Like, there was nothing memorable about them, and they get killed off. Some of them get killed off in the most ridiculous and laziest ways possible. It's just like, that's another one of the main reasons why I think this was not a successful film. Another reason why, going back to what I said before, the fact that this was set up to be the finale of the Indiana Jones series. Like I said before, I don't think that this was ever meant to be the final overall installment of the Indiana Jones series. If this was meant to be the last Harrison Ford adventure, and they were ready to pass the torch on to another character in this film, maybe Mutt Williams would have come back in this, but we find out in this movie that Mutt Williams actually dies because he went to Vietnam. But which I thought that was kind of what they were setting up for in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but then that film did not last long, and they decided not to work on that film again, and then they decided to kill Shia LaBeouf's character off in this film. So, I don't understand what they were trying to do with the conclusion of this. It was a nice ending, too, but it doesn't really set itself up for anything it's like I said before, there has to be some kind of an alternate ending where this story was going to continue on, like passing the baton to maybe Helena Shaw, and she was going to be the new lead of this series, and then they decided to hold back on that. Like there has to be something out there that made them decide to change their mind at the 11th hour and said, we got to make this be the final film of the series, and we just got to tell people that we're never doing another one of these again. It's just like, it's like, I don't believe that this cut that we got here was supposed to be the final cut that we actually got from the original plan all along. So, and let's just go ahead and delve into the last reason why I think this movie failed at the box office. And I hate to say it because I still like the film, but even I have to admit this. There's no real reason to make this movie. Really, there's no real reason to make this movie. I mean, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, as much as I like that film, as much as I will defend that film, I will fully admit it's nowhere near as good as the Last Crusade. The Last Crusade ends the series on a high note. It ends the original trilogy on a high note. It should have ended there, but it continued on because the demand is there to go back to the past, bring back some of these old stories again. And that's why we got Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a hit critically and financially when it first came out, but then, of course, the backlash started almost immediately as the year ended, which, like I said before, I still like that movie a lot, but at the same time, I'm willing to more than admit that it feels like a bonus storyline. It doesn't feel like something that needed to be added to the main story that was pretty much wrapped up in Last Crusade. And Dial of Destiny also feels very, very unnecessary. Like, unless you're really going for a straight-up finale to the storyline, a straight-up finale to the Indiana Jones series, give this series the proper finale that it deserves, end it up on a high note, and then you come up with this, which I've said it before throughout this, and I'll say it again. I seriously do not believe that this was intended to be the last film in the series. Like, there's no reason to think that. Like, especially with Disney, who will try to do whatever it takes to get whatever money they can out of a specific property or franchise, regardless of what happens here. And it's just like, I mean, it just doesn't feel like this film was really set to be the last installment of the series. And unless you have to go into this full on knowing that this is going to be the end. You can't just decide while you're making the film, we're done with this. We can't do this anymore. And it's like, you can't do that. You just can't do that in this case here, because you already have so much thrown at you. Your backs are already against the wall because people want to criticize you because you're Disney, because you still make a lot of money, and everyone hates that you make a lot of money. You have people that go against Kathleen Kennedy, even though she's been with Lucasfilm for pretty much since the late 80s. I mean, she's worked with Steven Spielberg since the late 80s, and everyone hates her for what she's done with Star Wars, which I don't hate her for, because, like I've said it before, Star Wars has been better under Disney, regardless of what anybody says out there. There's been some stuff there that hasn't been great, but I'm sorry. I will gladly take anything that comes from Star Wars, from Disney under Star Wars, than the prequels any day of the week. That's just my personal take on it, but so you have all those things back against the wall, and then you're trying to make a film that's trying to regain the trust of the audience after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That's incredibly hard to do with all those things going against you on so many levels. You want to go back to the good old days, that's fine. You want to give this a proper send-off, that's fine as well, but you have to figure this out before you even decide to go in front of the camera. And, like, you really need to think about what your overall goal is with this. Like, if this is intended to really be the last installment of the series, think about that before you make the movie. Don't think about it while you're making the movie, and then you have to come up with a rushed ending to the series. That I have no reason to believe that this was intended to be the finale of this series. Like I said, I've said it many times here, there has to be an alternate cut out there somewhere, or an alternate script, or something that says that their intentions were to continue this going forward. And it just feels like this, and it's a very unnecessary film. As much as I like this film, it's a very unnecessary film in the series. Like, it does not need to end this way. Like, it does not need to. It's like, if this is intended to be the last film in the series, I guess it, like I said before, it does end on a very good note. I really like the scene with Marion coming in and helping and reconciling with Indiana Jones. Like, like I said, it's a really good scene, and I said before, I got more emotions out of that than I did with the Flash. Like anything that happened in the Flash, like even though I like the stuff in the emotional stuff in that film, I thought this movie did a better job with it because the rest of the film itself was an entertaining film. As much as I can criticize this movie for some of the stuff going on behind the scenes and the plans for overall, I still really like this movie. I still think it's a good, fun summer escapism movie. Do I think it's one of the best films in the series? Absolutely not. I'd probably put this somewhere between my third and fourth favorite Indiana Jones movie. I can't. It kind of differentiates between Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny. And as long as Temple of Doom still is out there, I still think that's the worst Indiana Jones movie, even though that still has some stuff in there that I like about it. That's the thing. There's a lot about these movies that I really like, even the ones that I really don't like. Like, there's a lot I like about Temple of Doom. It's still the worst of the Indiana Jones movies, but it still has a lot there that I still really like about it. And I'll give the Indiana Jones movies this. They did what the Fast and Furious movies failed to do. Like, Fast and Furious could have easily used Furious 7 as the final installment of that series. Paul Walker's dead. There's no reason to bring him back. You have both him and Dom going their separate ways, and that's where the series should have ended. But they kept going, and those films got worse and worse and worse. Case in point with Fast X. Occasionally they'll have something like Hobbs and Shaw, but at the same time, there's no reason to make for that series to continue afterwards. But unlike Fast and Furious, Indiana Jones, there's no reason to continue that series after The Last Crusade. But you know what? Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny are still fun movies. I'll still go back and watch Crystal Skull when it's on when they play it on TV with the other Indiana Jones movies. It's still a good, fun movie that I still remember seeing a couple of times in the theaters. And I have a lot of things I like about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but I also have a lot of things that I don't like about it. I have things that really concern me about how Disney put this all together and how they plan to make this film, and the way that it eventually turned up. Like, I don't really know if this movie will ever get the love that it deserves. Like, I think the people that went to go see it and liked it, I think they're going to still enjoy the film many years later. But the people who are already celebrating the fact that it's bombing and the fact that they're celebrating Disney's downfall and all that, like that's just something that's just like, I hate those type of people. Like, I hate the people that want to badmouth the studio because they're making money that they're never going to make in their lifetime. Like, yeah, Disney's not having a good year right now, considering how the year started with Quantumania being a mixed bag. Then you've got the whole thing going on with Jonathan Majors right now, and then you had Elemental get off to that rocky start, and Indiana Jones right now is not doing so well, and Haunted Mansion, they're barely starting the promotional aspects of that, so that's something else you got to bring into consideration. There's a lot of struggles going on right now in terms of what Disney's going through right now. They had to fire their former boss because he became a jackass with the way he saw the company, and had to bring Bob Iger back. And like, there's so many bridges that need to be repaired in Disney right now, and there's going to be, I really do think there's going to be a point where something's got to change within Disney. Like, they've got to change their strategy on how to put these movies out there. You have to put more than event films out in theaters. Because these little films that you put on Disney Plus, sometimes you put these little films on Disney Plus, they turn out to be great films, and then just a few months later, they get taken off the streamer now because of what happened at Warner Brothers and the stupid things that David Zaslav did. I mean, Crater was a film that came out not but 2 months ago on Disney Plus. That's gone. And I got to see that movie not too long ago, and I will say that people really missed out on something really great with that film. It's a really good film, and I'd highly recommend checking it out. It's not one of my favorite films of the year, but it's definitely a great little film that I really liked. But something's got to change at Disney in terms of how their releasing strategy. I think they have to put some of these smaller movies back on the big screen. Like, if there's one thing I'll give Warner Brothers credit for, they decided to put their streaming films on the big screen, and one of those films turned out to be Evil Dead Rise, which I just watched on HBO not too long ago, and that's a really great film that was originally intended to go straight to HBO Max, and that was a big hit for them. And they had a lot of films on there that they were really good. 8-Bit Christmas was a great film on there. Christmas Story Christmas last year was a surprisingly good film. Blue Beetle, which I'm really looking forward to checking out, and I wish they'd start promoting it, but you know, there's just so many things going on right now, and I think with the writer strike that's going on right now and this actor strike that could be coming up in the next couple of days, these studios are going to get a huge wake-up call that they really need to change the way they handle their business. Like, they're trying to push AI, and it's not going to help them by pushing AI around. I don't care how much they try to do it. It's not going to push the way that these studios should run and make money, because they're going to lose money by investing more into that than actually giving the people who are writing this and making these films the proper treatment they deserve. And I know I'm just going on a tangent right now, but it kind of leads back to what I'm thinking about with this film, like why it didn't do so well. You don't really promote this movie until less than 6 months before the movie comes out. You don't give it this big push that you gave to Star Wars. You don't give it this big push that you gave to the Marvel films. So why did you even make this movie? You made this film to try to get people to see Indiana Jones in a positive light one more time. And the end result was a film that worked okay for what it was, but it's certainly not going to make me consider it one of the greatest films in the series by any means necessary. And it's a shame, too. Like, I really wish this film would have done much better, but they're kind of screwed at this point because of what's coming up for them in theaters in the next couple of weeks and months. They blew it. They blew an opportunity here to make something really special. They should have made this a big event. They didn't really do any of that, and this is the end result of it. And it's a shame because the movie actually is good, but unfortunately it's got this bad press behind it that's going to be really... Disney's going to have a really hard time coming out of this year strong. I think this year is going to be a huge loss for them. They'll still make a ton of money, but at the same time, people are starting to see the flaws in the company right now, and they really need to look at themselves in the mirror and think, we need to do something to completely change to get back to where we once were. And I hope that this is a wake-up call for them, but we'll see what happens. So with that said, that's going to wrap up this little test for the Reviewing Network Talks About here. I kind of wanted to do this, honestly, because I felt obligated to do it after I gave so much smack to The Flash. And there's a lot here to digest about what went wrong with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destinies in terms of the way it was promoted, in the way that it was presented in theaters, and the overall experience of the film itself here. I will gladly take this over The Flash any day. I still think The Flash is by far the worst movie of the year. This film is good for what it is, but it should have been a whole lot better, especially since with everything they were setting up for it. Do you folks out there agree with me with what I said? So let me hear your thoughts. I want to know what your thoughts are down below in the comments section. Do you think I'm on the right path here talking about why this movie didn't really do well? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. And I want to thank you guys so much for sticking around throughout the course of this. I really do appreciate you guys coming to the channel and checking this video out. And there's going to be a lot more of these coming up in the next couple of weeks and months, so I really hope you check that out. I'll remind you once again that we are launching a new podcast show coming up in September, the Reviewing Network Live. If you want to go check it out, I'll put a link to the channel in the corner. Please subscribe to that channel. If you like this, hit the like and subscribe button on this channel as well, so you can get updates on when new videos are coming out. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys for the next video. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.